Hello, everybody, and welcome to the B-Movies Podcast presents The Chucky Files, a series of interviews with Child's Play creator Don Mancini. And today we're looking at 1988's Child's Play.
Everyone has a birthday they'll always remember.
Can we open my presents now, Mommy? A good guy! I knew it! Hi, I'm Chucky.
He's something, isn't he?
This is Andy's.
Time for bed, Andy. Good night, baby.
Good night, Aunt Maggie. Good night, Chucky.
I'd like to start by saying, you son of a bitch, you gave me so many nightmares.
Awesome.
That's how, like, literally, like, I'm not saying that it's like, oh, it was a scary movie. I had recurring nightmares about Chucky as a child.
How old were you when
I was 6 when it came out. And
So did you see it when you
I
were
saw the
6?
trailers. I didn't even see the movie. I just saw the commercials. And then I didn't work up the nerve to see any of the Child's Play movies until I was in my early 20s. Just because I was like, I don't want to relive this. This was hell on me. And then I watched it and I realized that I think the thing that scared me the most was the idea of a child being repeatedly attacked by his toys. And then I realized the movie, the first one in particular, is much more about the adults in some ways and how they won't believe him.
Right.
What was the genesis of this movie? Did you just think this would be scary, or did you just have like something you wanted to say about commercialism in the 80s?
It was definitely that. Commercialism in the 80s was a big driving force for me. My dad had worked in marketing and advertising when I was a kid, so I was really exposed to that a lot. And I was exposed to ad campaigns in their infancy. And so I just knew a lot about the world of advertising and how cynical it is, especially with regard to children. I mean, we even used as a line in, I think it was Child's Play 3, but this is an actual term that the world of advertising refers to children as consumer trainees.
Yeah.
And so the impetus was that I wanted to write a dark satire about how marketing and merchandising affected children. And since this was the mid-'80s, I was at UCLA Film School, Cabbage Patch Dolls were all the rage.
Yeah.
And, having, been a lifelong horror fan, I was aware of the living doll trope.
Dead
sort
of Night, The Twilight Zone.
Trilogy of Terror, all of them. But I realized that it had never been done as a feature before and really treated the doll as a full-fledged character. At the same time, I also realized that, again, this is the era of just after Gremlins, say, that animatronic effects had advanced to the degree that you could treat the doll as a full-fledged character because the level of articulation and expression was very sophisticated, rather than those older doll things that we were talking about, where the doll's just kind of muppety and
Or as a ventriloquist dummy at best.
you couldn't really give those dolls pages and pages of dialogue, which we customarily throw at Chucky.
Yeah. How did you come up with the good guy motif? Because you could have gone with Cabbage Patch Doll. It could have been just a baby. It could have been a He-Man action figure, but you came up with basically my buddy.
Yeah, well, I actually, when I wrote it, I was unaware of my buddy. I know that was out there, but I didn't know anything about it. I mean, when I thought of, what he would look like, I mean, I guess what really turned out is that that must just be a fairly generic look for a doll. I mean, I know I wanted it to have red hair because of the kind of howdy-doody connotations, but also in fairy tales, red hair generally connotes evil.
Yes, just like in real life.
Just like in real life, gingers are to be avoided.
But so that was the hair. But I just wanted
the blue eye, blue eyes, freckles, overalls, red sneakers. I guess I thought I was being original, but it's as it turns out a fairly generic look for a doll. But I suppose I was just unconsciously affected by mass-marketed dolls that were around me that just sort of seeped into my consciousness.
Did you write this as like a project at UCLA, or was this years later?
I was at UCLA. I was an undergrad. I was a junior, actually, and I had written a couple of screenplays before then, and did pretty well at it. So I felt I had a facility for it, and so I wanted to keep going. But this script actually was not for a class. It was just something I was doing separately, just because I just wanted to write something while the iron was hot. I mean, there was no hot iron. It was in my head.
Yet while you were motivated.
I was motivated because I got an A, on a previous script. So I thought, well, now's my time.
So when did you complete the first draft of this and send it out, or whatever draft it was?
June 1985.
Okay.
I think is when it went out, and my original title was Batteries Not Included.
But you and her camera guy's laughing at that.
It's a good title.
It's a great title.
It's a really good title.
And it alludes to the best scene in the movie.
Absolutely. And which is a scene that was in my original script.
Yeah.
Although a little bit later in the script. So yeah, June '85, I'd gotten my first agent because I was living in a house at the time with a few other film types, and one of them worked as a writer's assistant. And I was able to get the script to that writer. He read it, liked it, showed it to his agent, and that's how I got my first agent. Somewhere in there, someone flagged the fact that Spielberg was developing something called Batteries Not Included.
A vastly inferior film, no less.
Well, it certainly had nothing to do with dolls.
Yes.
Or batteries.
Or inclusion.
So we changed the title to Blood Buddy. Now, in my original script, the doll was not named Chucky, it was named Buddy. And is it time now to get into the differences between the script and
I think I want to, because you've talked about this before.
Many times.
That in your version of the script, Andy, the child who gets the doll, it was more of a red herring. The audience wouldn't know for certain if it was Andy doing the killing or if the doll was doing the killing.
Right.
And in the film, it's clear from the very first scene.
Right.
How did you? Okay, let's just start there. Whose idea was it initially? Was it an executive? Was it director Tom Holland who said we need to be really upfront with this from the get-go?
I think it was David Kirshner's notion to do that. He was the producer on all of the movies.
Right.
It really depends on who you ask.
Right. What was the concern?
I mean, Tom may tell you that was his idea to do that.
Totally his idea, all the way.
John LaFia may tell you that was his idea.
But you're the one who's saying it's not yours.
It wasn't my idea.
Absolutely
that
not.
aspect was not in my original script. The doll, Buddy, was not possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. Rather, he was the manifestation of Andy's unconscious rage, basically.
Sort of a Forbidden Planet kind of angle.
Yes.
Okay.
Or even, do you remember, what was that George Romero monkey movie?
Monkey Shines.
Monkey Shines.
Yeah.
That is a similar kind of thing, too.
Yeah.
Although I've written that script in '85, Monkey Shines wasn't until '88, so maybe George Romero ripped me off. Who knows? The doll had this fake blood in it. It's like one of the marketable. I just thought this was a fun macabre idea that would appeal to
I would have bought
kids.
It. Like a little bleeds a lot. Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And if you in the latex skin, if you're playing with it too rough and you drop it, the skin breaks, then you have to go out and buy good guy Band-Aids. So it's just like a scam to get you to buy more products.
Of course.
But Andy, because he's this lonely little kid, doesn't have a father, his mother's working all the time, Chucky is his best friend.
Yeah.
So he cuts his thumb and the doll's thumb, and then that, archetypal rite of brotherhood mixes their blood together. Excuse me. And it's thereafter that the doll comes to life, whenever the kid is asleep.
Okay.
The doll comes to life and starts specifically going after the kid's enemies. His first target is the babysitter, who was Dinah Manoff in the movie. I think, whoever's idea it was, and I think it was David's, I think they just decided that it was better to be a little more black and white with the concept and have the division between good and evil clearer, I think. I mean,
Were they concerned it would be too scary or not as marketable?
Maybe not as marketable. I think that I felt it was more, my original premise was a little more intriguing, and certainly more psychological. It was more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And I think it was more disturbing because you're getting at these notions, the notion of little children have rage that they're socialized into not expressing. I mean, if we do our job right as parents, they're socialized into that. But if you happen to have a supernaturally possessed doll at your beck and call to like act that out, then you don't have to worry about it.
How much of the film, be it scenes or dialogue or ideas, remains from your original idea, whether or not it's the original draft?
Percentage-wise, it'd be hard to say. I would say probably like 50%. I think a lot of the dialogue was changed. The kid celebrating his birthday, expressing his desire for the doll, his mother surprising him with it, the night with the babysitter, although the details of the murder changed. A lot of, that was the same. It was really after Chucky comes to life, which again, as I was just saying, in my script, the scene with the batteries happened later in the script. That was sort of like the third act curtain rise. Tom did it like right dead center in the film. After that, it starts diverging quite a bit. Then the stuff with, because he has the mythology about Charles Lee Ray, Chucky, remember, that goes after his former partner. Do you remember the character Eddie Caputo, which is something I never quite understood. I mean, I don't think serial killers often travel in pairs.
Yeah, or it's not even a pair. He's just like an accomplice. He's like his getaway driver for serial killing.
What's going on? They seem like petty thieves or something.
I noticed, and we'll get to this when we get to Curse of Chucky, that you do a flashback just before the first movie begins, and there's no Eddie Caputo. It's just you wanted to is he in there somewhere, or are you just sort of?
I'm sorry. What?
In Curse of Chucky, there is a flashback with Brad Dourif, and you see him.
Oh right,
on,
we just see him.
And
like,
there's no Eddie Caputo in there,
right.
and I was wondering if there was ever any temptation, or you're just like, I don't know. Why he's in the
I think
movie.
you and I and Tom Holland and the actor, I think his name was Neil Gentoli, are the only people who remember Eddie Caputo, because Eddie Caputo didn't even have any lines in the movie.
Yeah.
Literally has no lines of dialogue in the final cut of the film.
Yeah, it's
like
weird.
It's like when he's like gonna leave Charles Lee Ray, you know, when he ditches him, he kind of goes, ugh. He makes this utterance, ugh. And then in the scene when Chucky comes to kill him in that abandoned house, he kind of, he just makes a couple of utterances, but he utters not one word in the whole movie. So I assume that there was more that got cut. Anyway.
Looking back on it now, because what did you think of the finished product when you first saw it, and how do you feel about it now, the first film in the franchise?
I was very excited. It was my first thing. I was 25 years old, so I was thrilled to be, part of a major motion picture. I had, after the movie was filmed, I was not on set because it was shot in the winter of '88, and there was a writer's strike that happened there, and I was like a new Writers Guild member.
Didn't want to make any waves.
Suddenly, well, I don't know that I was that welcome there anyway, but I wasn't around for the shooting of the movie, so it was in post that I kind of caught up with it, and David Kirshner sort of invited me back into the process, and he showed me a rough cut. I mean, there like the first cut that I saw was like 2 hours long.
Wow.
That movie is like 88 minutes. So there's a lot that came out of it. And it was great to reconnect with it at that point, because I think that I had a little bit of objectivity about it, and I think that David saw that my, voice at that stage could be valuable.
Yeah.
But I was very excited, and was thrilled that it was a hit. It was a little misleading as well in terms of like how movie careers work. I was really lucky.
You came out of the gate.
I didn't quite understand.
You're supposed to flounder for like 20 years before you sell
exactly.
something.
And it was like, I got an agent, the movie got made, it was a hit, and spawned a franchise. I mean, so I was really lucky, but didn't fully understand that at first. I just thought, oh, this isn't hard. And then we rolled right into Child's Play 2, and and that was a hit as well.
All right. Well, we will get to that tomorrow when the Chucky Files continue at CraveOnline.
There's nothing innocent about Child's Play.